In today's Feel Good Friday, we're looking at the journey of the client and things. So step 5 is plan your client experience from the very start, and basically how we can make them feel more cherished, how we can prepare them to get ready to actually spend in the viewing room, and as well, let's not forget how we're going to prepare them to not only come in with all the right clothing, but also to be prepared to actually be a client for life if we do our job right. Now, the client journey will have different touch points, depends on specifically where they're first introduced to us. The journey map that we're seeing in front of us now is actually based around, as you can see, the past client. So the past client will have a slightly different journey than pretty much everybody else. And what we're trying to do is understand all the elements that will make the session, will make the viewing the most successful that we can make it for that client at that time. So there's definitely going to be different client journeys for many of you. If you're a very large studio, probably when you're looking at high amounts of sessions during the week, 40 plus, you're going to be looking at a absolutely perfected journey with more money being spent on that client, making sure that they are prepared fully to actually come into the studio and basically preparing them to actually spend large amounts of money as such. That's what the big business is really trying to do. You might be a small high street studio. I was a small high street studio for pretty much most of my portrait career, spending 9 years in one location, then 7 years in another. And as far as the small high street studio is concerned, it doesn't mean that we're any lesser than a large high street, as it were, or large studio facilities or franchise. But we're going to be looking at probably between 20 and 40 sessions per week. So you may think that we're going to have a slightly smaller spend level preparing the client coming in, and I will explain now in a minute what we're actually doing. But you're still, if you're looking at 500 to £1 million worth of turnover, you're really still having to invest quite a lot of effort, quite a lot of money into the client journey from the beginning. If you're an out-of-town studio in a shopping center, a shopping mall, a warehouse, I would say that especially if you're in a warehouse, you really need to prepare the client to spend much more than you may even imagine, because their first impressions with a large studio premises and brand and a small high street studio presence and brand will be a lot more than the likes of a warehouse when you're just arriving and basically you're just a sign outside a commercial building as such. So impressing the client before they arrive will probably be one of the biggest things that you need to do. Pretty much in the same way for photographers who are working from a home studio, that would be where the studio was within the home itself. So as far as the route to the studio, as far as they arrive through the front door or the side door or a special door, the journey for the client getting to that space is going to be absolutely imperative that you make sure that the walkways and everything else are clear of clutter. They sing business as well as home, and they basically ensure that the client isn't worrying about the dog or the smell of a dog or the likes of toys all over the floor, clutter and so on with it. So you need to make sure that you're doing that. A garden studio, similarly, how are they going to access the garden studio? Are they coming through the house, the side of the house, the back of the house? Can we make the entrance specific for them so that they know when they come through the door, they're basically at the right place? They know that this is the studio of, and the journey from that gate, that door, whichever, take them along to the home garden studio will ensure that things are clear. Again, gardens are nicely worked upon. That is all a part of the actual client journey. And I'm not on about just the physicality, it's actually what they see with their eyes. Things like steps, they need to be made aware of. If there are any, paths need to be clear. Your kind of family areas need to be neat as well. And there's a lot of things to actually think about when you're working through a garden studio, in the same way as making sure that the reception is polished every day and kind of cleaned and so on when you're working in high streets and so on. On location with a viewing room, so the journey for the photographer getting the client to the right place at the right time to ensure that the client knows where they're going to be meeting you. And then that is going to be one part, explaining them fully in the client journey what is going to happen visually and physically with a brochure or an app or whatever, to make sure the client is fully aware of what's going to be going on. And then, of course, preparing them for the viewing room experience, whether that is in a small office or whether it's in your home or garden studio with it, how the client is going to be viewing their photographs. They need to be prepared a little bit more. And of course, because you can't show them physical product perhaps when you're on location with them, they need to have more of a client journey investment into the likes of a brochure for the likes of getting them ready for the viewing room. And then when you're working totally on location and the client is just going to be viewing their photographs via the likes of, say, Zoom, you need to make sure that you invest more and more into a brochure for both of the experiences, getting ready for the session and arriving on the location, etc. And also the information, the full information on the brochure and price list kind of going through. So one of the reasons that I would encourage you to separate those two, one for the client journey up until the session point with a brief mention of viewing, but then a separate brochure for the viewing and products with a separated price list, so you can change the price list instead of the brochure each time. But you need to be splitting those in half because we don't really want to be scaring the client off with costs too much prior. Remember the X times Y equals Z. You need the amount of clients, even those who are not going to spend, which is the Y, and obviously the average Y, as it were, is going to be completing it. So X is the amount of clients that we get through our door. That includes, I should say, the no sailors. The Y is the average that we expect, including the no sailors, and obviously times those together, and that will either give us business success or business failure. So in the 5-point kind of here, first contact and first impressions with it. If we're at an exhibition, your banners, your message, your brochure, your cards, your albums, your pictures on display, everything is about first contact. However, it also means that the person on the exhibition stand doesn't have the likes of their phone out all the time or whatever. There's no reason for somebody on an exhibition to have a phone out unless they're with a customer and they're basically booking them in for a session or they're making a sale. The first contact and the first impression, if a client is emailing you, prompt, but it doesn't have to be within minutes. You know, if you're doing your email twice a day, that is quite a lot. Anyway, remember, you're there to be in business rather than the business completely controlling everything that you're doing. As far as the emails, look at email templates that you can use for similar clients, so you can copy and paste similar information to save you having to think about what you're going to write each time. A brochure perhaps going in the post, or if you haven't got the budget yet, a very well prepared app, which at some stage could be turned into a brochure perhaps, but basically to keep the budget low but to keep the brand high. Remember, all the first impressions that we're making at the beginning are going to do everything for the client as far as to make them feel special and making sure that they feel that you are better than any other photographer they've ever been to in their life. You've got to remember as well, specifically if you're a family photographer, that hardly anybody has gone through the family portrait experience. There's not as many as you think have actually gone through a proper family portrait experience. So there are a market out there. They just cost us a lot of time trying to get through our doors because there's multi-generations in our shoot. But the more we can focus in on one part of our avatar client, then obviously if we can impress them in the right way and we can get them through our door, there's a very good chance we're going to make a very good living from it. First contact, when they walk into your studio premises or the reception area inquiring, this is about first contact the whole time. How are we greeting them? Is there a basic welcome script? Is there a script if somebody inquires about a voucher, if they're inquiring about a session, if they're inquiring about how much? How are you addressing all these things? And these things all take time, And basically the good thing about it is that once these are put in place and they are applied every day within our business, we can then during the course of time just tweak things just a little bit as we go. So is there a plan like I just showed to you in a basic kind of curve? We'll look at another plan in a minute where we're looking at all the different kind of sections and broken down. But the journey plan, if it is created, and I kind of refer to it at some stage in my beard marketing kind of presentations, where you should be able to pretty much scribble down a journey within the size of a beer mat. If you live in the UK, you know what I'm on about. The right people for the job. Exhibition stands. I'm good on an exhibition stand for a very short time. I'm very bad on an exhibition stand for a very long time. So that means that I've always had to invest into the right people to make sure they're on my stand. The journey on my stand, though, is what I'm very good at, to make sure that visually and basically aesthetically and the right information is at hand for the prospective avatar when they visit our stand, and how we can get the bees to our honeypot. In other words, how we can stop them from walking past to attract them to our stand. So we need to make sure the right people are for the job, and we train the right people up. Many businesses in photography are what used to be referred to as a mom and pop business. So a husband and wife team, or a wife and husband team, one doing one specific task, the other doing the other task and things really. But it was also meant as a bit of a derogatory. It was meant as a small lifestyle business, just doing enough to actually bring a steady income in, but no real kind of heights of glory in anticipation. And when you're kind of doing the right people for the job, you are a husband and wife team, or vice versa, you really make sure that one of you is in charge of very specific tasks. You've also got to be aware that not everything is being dumped on one person in the partnership. So even if you're running as a partnership, you know, husband-wife team, wife and husband team, whatever, or you're a sole trader and then you're having to employ somebody to do a task because you have to bring somebody in to do it. You've got to make sure they're the right people, and the right people to employ are not always the ones who've had the most experience. In fact, they're the ones who basically bring a personality and a bubble, and will basically be a mirror of you, or better still, they are better than you. So you can concentrate on the more affluent tasks, i.e. the creativity, the photography, perhaps the sales. Or if you're not very good at sales, you get somebody in to be doing that for you, because it's amazing how somebody with a little bit more bubble, a little bit more personality, a little bit more confidence, who can talk about how great you are, can drastically improve the actual sales room. So if you think about, if they can improve the sales room by 50 to £100 on average, and they're being paid £10 per hour, and the majority of viewings only take less than an hour, it means that for the sake of 10-20 quid per client per viewing, that might be including them preparing the client coming in for the shoot. It might be a part of their time is preparing the client coming in for the viewing, and obviously a little bit of their time for actually the pickup. So 2 hours all in all will basically change your business without even kind of you even blinking as such. So you may feel that you can't afford to bring somebody else in, but in fact the question would be, can you afford not to bring somebody else in? The systems and then repeat. So in other words, make sure the journey plan is in place, make sure you look at it all the time. I had a perfect example on Tuesday when, thank goodness, one of the adverts that we were running within the experience group wasn't getting much traction. And luckily, somebody messaged to say that the form didn't work. And in fact, the form didn't work. And whoever had created the form hadn't basically checked the form by filling it in themselves and starting the journey in a good way. So whereas we basically didn't have any forms filled in within 36 hours, the forms then, once it was corrected, we had, you know, around about 30 forms filled in within the next 36 hours. But the worst part was we wasted money and we wasted a client coming and touching base with us. and it was because somebody checked what we were doing and they reported it that we got to fix our error. Otherwise, that could have been on repeat, and we would have said, well, that campaign didn't work. It didn't work, so we'll not run that again, and we move on. So again, make sure that you check your systems are in place and they're working. And of course, really what I'm looking for is that client forever. That past client, that repeat client, and so on with it. Because once that client is conditioned into what we do, the benefit of that is that there's almost less education going on, and we don't need to inspire them up as much. But if a client hasn't been with us for, say, 2-3 years, you might have moved studio, you might have completely changed your style, the price list would have changed, products would have changed, and so on. But it doesn't mean that the client journey has drastically got to change. But if you look here, are separated into the different kind of structure in all the different touch points that are slightly the same or different, depends on the different kind of client. So in a journey as such, once we prepare for the kind of the basics, as you can see from the booking and the pre-session fix, that's this kind of section, column 3, moving right towards the end, it's the same for everybody else, in fact, except for the likes of an in-person booking, a corporate gift and business-to-business relationship, and a past client. So in fact, the only slight tweaks we need to do to a journey are basically in the introduction and the first contacting with most of those clients, but pretty much a lot of them lap over. There's just a slightly different structure. If you do want to see a journey from beginning to end in how I structure it for the experience group, then I'd recommend that you head over to the experiencegroup.co.uk and basically sign up for the secrets page, and there you actually get to see a full recording of one of our journey presentations as such, really. So that is if you just go across onto the likes of the experience page, you then link in here, as you can see just below the video, of experience secrets. And if you register, then you'll get access into the likes of the secrets page. If you're interested in joining, of course, my experience group, then you can find the up-to-date pricing and information and what we deliver for the group by visiting the experiencegroup.co.uk/join-now with a capital J and a capital N. But easiest way is to come through from the front of the site and actually work your way through. So thanks for joining me live on another 13 steps. Next session, we're going to be looking at keep more of your clients. So looking at how we can maximize them in a day-to-day, a month-by-month business basis.